Hey everyone, it's Draconian Rain and welcome to Orphanlast's channel. I'd like to give a special thank you to Orphanlast for allowing me the opportunity to post this video on his channel, as well as for collaborating with me and being so incredibly patient. We had organised this quite a while ago and unfortunately it's been held up because of me and things that have been going on in my life currently. The idea behind this collaboration is we both draw a picture and record the process and post that video to each other's channel. Then we colour each other's drawing, record that and post that to each other's channel, just to change things up and make things a little more interesting. For my drawing, I'm using Procreate on iPad and Medibang Paint Pro on iPad. The main reason why I'm using an iPad to create this drawing is just simply because with everything that's going on in my life right now, it's more convenient than trying to find the space and the time to sit down at the computer, work on something and not get distracted or bothered by people around me. Despite the fact that I'm using an iPad to draw with, my process, technique, drawing style would all be identical to what I would be doing if I was doing it at a desktop computer with a regular graphics drawing tablet. With that being said, and at this point in the video, you're probably wondering what it is that I'm actually drawing. Well, it's a jellyfish mermaid, and the inspiration for that come from a drawing challenge in the month of May called May, where you draw mermaids for every day in the month of May. Now this year I didn't participate, but I was certainly looking at all the amazing and beautiful mermaid art that was going around, and people were doing everything from classical mermaids to mermaids inspired by other sea creatures such as jellyfish, shark and clownfish and other things and whatnot. I really liked the idea of jellyfish mermaids, and I'd seen a few and a lot of them were just beautiful and cute, but I wanted to do something a little more strange, and the jellyfish that I chose to reference from were photos of a jellyfish called the box jellyfish. And the main reason for that is I have a memory of this really bright orange box jellyfish where I seen it in a lake, a really huge lake. And what I was doing there was I was at a camp when I was in year 4 in primary school, and we were all swimming and doing our swimming lessons and having some fun, and the teachers all screamed out, everybody get out of the water right now. And we're like, oh, why? Is there like a shark or something? And it turned out to be a jellyfish, and I looked down in the water and there it was, just floating around, and it was absolutely stunning to look at. But from what the teachers told us, it was also incredibly deadly, and that's what I based most of this jellyfish mermaid's design around. It's something that's, it's pretty to look at, but it's also very deadly. As I started to design her and she started to look a little bit more strange as I went on, I was beginning to worry that she was maybe a little bit too strange, but Orphanlast did say draw whatever you want, and this is what happened. The more I drew, the more carried away I got, and I started to remember a few more finer details of the box jellyfish I saw when I was young. And it was quite a lovely orange, but it had this really frilly look to it underneath. I don't know what it's called, let's just call it the top half. And it was very frilly, much like a ballerina, which is why I posed her the way that I had. I wanted her to have a sort of swimming ballerina type of look and feel to her, and because of what jellyfish are and the way that they function, I also decided not to give her any kind of eyes or eyesight. I decided to make her blind. Because of all the effort I'd taken into designing her and the jellyfish surrounding her, I took quite a lot of time to create the line art, and that also took a lot longer than I expected because it's been a few years since I've done proper line art. In the last few years or so, I've become more of a lineless artist where I don't use any kind of line art at all. I just paint in all of my details, or I use a very minimal amount of line art just to highlight specific features or areas of my artwork. And I really wanted to give this picture my absolute best as well, because this is my first video collaboration in a very, very long time, and I also did not want to disappoint. So, keeping all of that in mind, I tried to make sure that I was also making the line art interesting and not boring in any way that I could possibly manage, because I've coloured in quite a lot of line art over the years, and there's nothing worse than getting a picture where there's practically no effort put in and it is just ultimately boring to work on. And quite honestly, that's a very hard thing to do, because you can actually add a lot of detail into something and it can still be boring to work on. But when you start adding a lot of interesting shapes along with your design, it creates a lot more interest, and you have to stay more focused, and you really have to think about what you're doing and where things are going and what colors are going to go best where and things like that. So I tried to keep that in mind, but I also had to remind myself not to go too crazy, because honestly I would have actually liked to have added more detail, but I also had to keep in mind that if I did add in more detail, it would probably get lost once it was colored, which is also why I left her topless through most of the video, because I could not make my mind up about what I wanted her to be wearing, if anything at all, because my original intention was to have her in something that resembled more of a ballerina's leotard or something nice like that, or something frilly, just anything that would fit the theme but not be too overdone. Because I'm an overthinker, that's also why I used a decorative and messy brush in the blue colour to create a base for drawing the frills. The whole idea behind that was to remind myself that it doesn't have to be perfect, and it gave me a really great base for just for drawing something that should look messy and strange and unusual and almost impossible in its flow, and just keep this tattered ribbons and material kind of look to the jellyfish and the jellyfish mermaid. This was why I left the background completely blank, because I felt like adding in any more detail would have turned the artwork from something interesting into an eyesore. I also felt like once the drawing was coloured in, that if a background was necessary, that the decision should be left up to Orphanlast, because once you colour something like this in, sometimes it's just not a good idea to add a background. It can ruin a picture, or it can make it better. It just all depends on how you colour it in and how you choose to light your artwork, which is what also makes this collaboration so great, because when we were talking about it, we didn't give each other any kind of boundaries or restrictions. It was just, hey, draw whatever you want and I'll colour it in on my channel, and we just sort of went from there. But I also tried to keep whatever it was that I was making reasonable, because I do have a tendency to draw either really strange things or things with a lot of detail, and not everybody enjoys colouring in something that has a lot of detail in it. With me personally, I love colouring in things that have a lot of detail and a lot to think about, but I also enjoy doing simple line art as well, just as much as I enjoy doing things that are detailed, because it allows me to think more about the colours and getting an emotional response by the colours that I choose to use and the kind of lighting that I choose to use on simple line art versus things that are heavily detailed. This is another reason why I chose Medibang Paint Pro to do my line art in. It has a pen stabilizing feature, and unfortunately the Apple Pencil is very sensitive, and in Medibang Paint Pro it just seems to wobble for any reason at all. You know, it might be that it's extra sensitive, I might be slightly shaky, but if I was using a real pen and just drawing my line art on actual pen and paper, you know, with pen and paper, there'd be no shaking at all. But the Apple Pencil is super sensitive, and I love programs that have a pen stabilizer so I can get the most natural response out of it possible and maintain a certain level of neatness without it being too neat. And what I mean by too neat is when you have your stabilizer set so high that it starts to look like vector art and it's just too perfect. I personally don't like that, but a lot of my artist friends do, and that's fine. But for me, I like my line art to be exactly how I would be drawing it if I was using just regular old pen and paper. And I know that this feature is in Procreate, but I haven't found it to customize it to the setting that I like. And two, I find it easier to create custom brushes in Medibang Paint Pro than I do Procreate, because I'm a lot more familiar with it. I have actually been using Medibang Paint Pro for a few years now, and I absolutely love the program. It's pretty simple, but you can do a lot of advanced things with it, and it's just absolutely fantastic to use. And the other reason why I chose Medibang Paint was because it has cloud storage. So every time it was getting auto saved and auto backed up, it was also getting automatically saved and backed up to its cloud services. And unfortunately, while I was working on this, it did crash a few times, and I think it was mostly because of the recording software, and there was just, you know, my iPad was doing way too much work and it couldn't handle the stress of it. Once I realized that, I changed my recording app to an app called Capture by TechSmith. This is the same company that created Camtasia Studio and Snagit. When I'm recording my speed arts or time lapses, I usually use Snagit because it's very fast, easy to use, and it does not crash, or at least it doesn't crash that often. This was something that I forgot about when I started recording things on my iPad, because I'd gotten so cozy with Snagit that I forgot how often screen recording apps can crash while you're working and you just end up losing everything. So when I found Capture by TechSmith, I got it straight away, and I have not been disappointed by it since. So right about now in the video, I switched over to TechSmith Capture and I added in a masking layer, because I thought, what if I change my mind on the tentacles? If I erase those lines, I'd have to redraw them all, and it took so much time to put them there in the first place. I just didn't want to make the sacrifice by making a definite decision and committing to it by erasing it. So I masked off the tentacles and the frilly underneath part, underneath the jellyfish, and then I carefully went through and masked out what I didn't want, and just to basically give it a nice neaten up. And I did end up liking how it was and how it turned out, but I know myself well enough to know that I'm also very indecisive, and it was a really good idea to plan ahead like that. And that's it from me. Once again, I am Draconian Rain, and I would like to thank Orphanlast again for allowing me to post to his channel and for doing this collaboration with me. It was definitely a lot of fun, and if you guys enjoyed this as well, please like and subscribe. For more information, please check the description box below.